I'm Haley.
And I'm Jay from Gallifrey Public Radio,
a podcast member of the Gonna Geek Network.
Just like the one you're listening to right now.
The opinions expressed are those of each individual.
Check out all the other podcasts at GonnaGeekNetwork.com.
And get ready, because geekiness begins in 3,
2,
1.
You are listening to the Starling Tribune, a podcast dedicated to the Arrow TV show.
This guy gets more airtime than the Kardashians, right?
This podcast is not produced or maintained by the CW, Warner Brothers Television, CTV, or DC Comics. All characters, situations, and stories are the properties of Time Warner. I am the Oracle, and this is your Tribune.
Welcome back to Earth 2's favorite newspaper, the Starling Tribune. Hello, I am the chief editor, Stargate Pioneer, but everybody calls me the SP. And your other reporters for this episode number 151 of the Starling Tribune are Chris.
I swear, those two will make the cutest couple one day.
Aww. And Michelle.
I'm sensing a lot of marital tension.
Tension, that's for sure. And some anonymous Argus personnel, Steven.
You know, under different circumstances, these chemlights might seem festive.
And they might be able to grow some very illegal plants in certain areas of the United States. Hey, this podcast is recorded on Thursday, May 4th, 2017, live on Geeks.live. Yes, May 4th, it is indeed Star Wars Day. May the 4th be with you. One of the great things about the Starling Tribune here on Earth 2, that in addition to being famous newspaper reporters and some anonymous Argus personnel, we all claim to be Earth 1 comic book enthusiasts, right, Chris?
That's right. I'm going tomorrow to my store on Revenge of the 5th to pick up my books.
Woohoo! At Free Comic Book Day this weekend, too. And Steven!
I love Captain Kirk.
Okay, I'm not sure what that means, but and Michelle.
Yes, Free Comic Book Day is Saturday, and I've been starting to go through my massive amount of comics so I can get caught up. My floors, stacks, and oh my goodness.
Can you build walls with your comic books yet?
Almost, but it'd be a beautiful wall. A wall people could read.
Yeah, they'd be great in some bathrooms, too. Mm-hmm. Just saying. Okay. Tonight, we will be discussing this week's episode of Arrow, as well as news, interviews, articles, and announcements that have dropped in the last week that could impact future episodes of Arrow, as well as other DC television properties like The Flash, Supergirl, Legends of Tomorrow, Vixen, and Constantine.
Just a friendly reminder too, folks. We like to wildly speculate based off of different information that's come from the showrunners, the actors, articles online, all sorts of things. So sometimes we throw out those wild speculations and we might accidentally be right about what's going to happen in the future. So just consider yourselves warned. We're not intentionally trying to spoil you, but it might happen accidentally.
And speaking of spoilers, sometimes we geek out and talk about this week's DC Comics as well. So every now and then you might hear a comic book spoiler because we are geeks and we love comics. And we love the source material of Arrow. So we'll try our best not to ruin too much for you, but we do like the DC universe as well.
If you're new to the show, thank you for searching us out on the internet and joining us. If you like our content, why don't you swing by our podcast network home at GonnaGeek.com. We can find all of our past shows, plus a ton of other geeky videos, podcasts, and articles, all under the Gonna Geek Productions banner.
All right, now that we've gotten that stuff out of the way, let's go ahead and break down this week's Arrow episode. Michelle, who do we got here?
Well, this episode is called Underneath. It's season 5, episode 20. It aired Wednesday, May 3rd. Director, Wendy Stansler. She's directed 7 Arrow, 3 Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., a Flash, a Gotham, 3 Glee, 4 Parks and Recreation, 4 Vampire Diaries, and a whole bunch of other stuff. Writers, Wendy Miracle, who is the showrunner on Arrow, has also written 21 episodes of Arrow, 1 Clone Wars, and 1 Smallville. And Beth Schwartz, writer of 21 episodes of Arrow and 2 Legends.
we were talking about this team last week of Wendy, and Beth, and we were like, wow, we can't wait for this episode the next week. But then we thought, oh no, it's going to be Olicity. But you know what? We'll talk to it in a little bit, but I think they did a great job. So I'm glad they brought the big guns in for this episode. Now let's take a look at the ratings for the week on the CW. Starting on Monday, the 1st of May, Supergirl led off with a outstanding 1.75. Ouch. I hate it when they're under 2. And this week's Supergirl was okay, except for the ending. We might talk about that later. Over on Tuesday with The Flash, the episode was called I Know Who You Are. It came in with 2.69 million, which is pretty good because we learned who Savitar was. And on Wednesday with the Arrow episode Underneath, as Michelle just described it, got a whopping series low of 1.36.
That surprises me because, I live tweet this and literally the internet was just like, Olicity was actually trending on Twitter as much as Arrow. And so I really thought the numbers were going to be higher because everyone knew this was an Olicity episode. So that's surprising.
I'm not surprised because I think a lot of people recognize how Olicity damaged the property last year. Like, I know a lot of people were talking about it, but I think that, people like myself who, like, if I had been someone who gave up on Arrow, Olicity wouldn't have brought me back. Now, with that said, I think you'll be interested to hear my thoughts a little bit later. But I think that Olicity really might have actually driven more people away.
I could see that. But it's such an unfortunate instance because, as you and I were alluding to before the show, that it was actually a pretty decent show. So it's just unfortunate the way they've killed it off the way they did, so that when something great like this episode comes along, that it just damages it further. So anyway, we'll get into the talk about what happened in the episode. But first, we're going to talk about the overall theme for the episode. And for that, we usually talk about the title, Underneath. Now, Michelle, we had a few choice words to say about Underneath before the show, didn't we?
Well, we got a little, kind of PG-13 where, underneath there's a certain little flashback and this little act that happened in the flashback where Felicity was underneath Oliver, then Oliver was probably underneath Felicity, so we had that action going on.
And then one was behind the other.
Well, I think if you're talking about the salmon ladder, Oliver was underneath Felicity when she was on top of the salmon ladder. I think that's
true. That's what I was talking about.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then he got behind her to hold her upwards. So yeah, absolutely. Okay. And then he went up and down and up and down as he worked that salmon ladder.
I was talking about him carrying her on his back throughout the lair after it got bombed. That's what I was talking about. What are you guys talking about?
Okay, so Chris, let's elaborate on this underneath in the Arrow Cave. What happened there?
Arrow Cave got blown up, yo.
It
didn't get blown up. It didn't get blown up.
It got an EMP blast that happened. Then there was a minor explosion as Curtis and Renee tried to get in. And then Oliver shot explosive arrows. So it did get blown up just on a small scale. I just loopholed you.
No, yes, because the explosion happened outside of the Arrow Cave above the elevator. Thus, it was not actually within the Arrow Cave.
Explosion originated inside the cave.
It happened outside.
Physics and chemistry.
Yeah, but then he actually shot, remember, and then Felicity sort of did her science, and then he shot that one arrow that did that little explosion and got them into that shaft part. Or
That's true. There was a shaft involved.
Yes. A nice long shaft.
So the obvious connection for Underneath, of course, is the fact that they're trapped underneath the building the lair is headquartered in. The other one you could look into is the undertones underneath the relationship between Diggle and Lila, as they are working out their marital issues, basically centering around Argus and his belief that you're turning into Amanda Waller.
Well, there's a trust issue there as well. And trust was an overall theme as well. And it had nothing to do with the title of Underneath, but maybe issues lying underneath the surface, I guess. But there is trust between Lila and John and trust between Felicity and Oliver.
No, I agree. That's actually underneath. Originally, when we see this, we think that with the look ahead last week, we thought that it was about underneath, in the bunker. But underneath, I think absolutely was applicable to both Felicity and Oliver's relationship, and also Lila and Diggles. Like, I think that it was intended as all three of these.
Did you just call Diggle Diglett?
Diglett. Him and me and Diglett, we go way back.
Is that like a chiclet Diglett? All right, so Stephen, what are your thoughts about? We love talking about the fights, the stunts of the show. What are your thoughts about the fights and the stunts in this episode?
There wasn't many, but what they did well. Like I actually really enjoyed the Diggle move when he ends up going over to the ladder and he just absolutely just commits. He runs across the big void and he catches the ladder and then he slides down predictably. Like, I don't know. I just loved seeing Diggle take that leap. We don't see that as much anymore. He's kind of cool and collected. And this was just like okay, I'm going to go. And he does his badassery. It was awesome.
So, Michelle, what did you think about all the fights and the action?
Well, there really wasn't any rough and tumble fights, like fist fights or anything like that. But a lot of the stunt work was pretty good. I mean, this on Twitter, we sort of joked that this episode was brought to you by we are running out of budget because we have a finale to film on an island that's coming up. But considering that they probably didn't have much of a budget, they did really well with it. It to me though, where it's like I was on board until like after Diggle makes that leap and he's on the ladder, Oliver, who's got punctured, looks like around his kidneys, so he's kind of bleeding severely internally. After this pump of adrenaline, gets up, is able to carry Felicity on his back up the ladder, and then he jumps and is caught by Diggle, and then Felicity slides. So you have Diggle holding Oliver, holding Felicity by one arm, and then Oliver with his one arm pulls up Felicity, puts it back on, and then Diggle's like, oh, pick everybody up. And I'm going, when did Diggle become a meta?
Well, he's been lifting heavy ever since season 1 because he's been trying to keep up with Stephen Amell, or Oliver Queen in this case. So I could completely believe that he's finally outdone the Amell.
I forever have thought that if he had the knowledge, the fight knowledge that Oliver does, Oliver wouldn't stand a chance against Diggle. Diggle is a brick. And I just think when you look at the two, it's just so obvious, right? But Oliver has that knowledge, which makes him win these fights, and he would honestly beat Diggle. And this is the thing, we're in life or limit here, and he ends up doing that, and I loved it. Again, it was a huge moment for me seeing Diggle do this. We don't see this often with Diggle, and it was fantastic.
You are all about the Diggle tonight. First of all, the Digglet, and now calling him a brick. I think the man's going to be insulted here.
He's a brick. Yeah, I thought it's plausible with Diggle, but it was Oliver pulling up Felicity. He's bleeding internally.
Felicity weighs 25 pounds.
Okay, I thought of that, Michelle, and to be honest, whenever I see these sort of things where one person's holding onto another by hand, I always call BS on it. However, we know of real life scenarios where moms have lifted vehicles off of their children, right? Because of the adrenaline in them. What did they give him? Adrenaline.
So we're also talking about the power of love. Someone sing the song for me.
So Stephen, you watched Supergirl this week, right? With the adrenaline.
I did.
Yeah, that's where that came from. Mm-hmm. Well, as far as the stunts, I think this place smells like rotten eggs. That's what I think about the stunts.
So does methane work that way? Because shouldn't they have run out of oxygen a lot sooner? Wouldn't the methane have basically like killed them a lot sooner?
So, methane is the lightest gas out there, so it's going to go to the top. So
hydrogen.
Stephen Amell was right of going all the way down into the steam tunnels in order to survive.
Plus, if we think about it, there is the whole, when you're exposed to something enough, you end up building up a resistance. And we've seen how much that these people on the Flareoverse like to go to Big Belly Burgers. So you can bet there's been a lot of methane exposure before.
Well, wait a minute. They were in the Arrow Cave, so they had all the special herbs and whatever from Lian Yu in the locker, right? So that's how they survived.
The thing, though, the thing is, though, methane is a gas, though, and it still rises the way other ones do, right? Like, I'm legitimately asking.
Yeah,
you, right?
methane is the lightest gas that rises.
Yeah. So, given the size of the Arrow Cave, I think it's totally plausible, right? Because, it is a very large space.
Does that answer your question, Michelle?
Yeah, it does. I'll accept it.
Okay, so now that you've accepted that, why don't you break down the flashbacks for us? Why don't you bring it into us? Why don't you transition into the flashbacks?
Well, normally when we do a flashback, it's to 5 years ago. So maybe you're expecting Russia, or maybe some sort of, we got flashbacks with Renee this season, but instead we got a flashback to 11 months ago, right after Olicity breaks up. Felicity and Ollie are in the Arrow Cave, and Felicity's like, we need a team. And Oliver's like, no, we don't. And then Curtis comes by, and then he's thinking, ooh, maybe you too. And Felicity's like, no. And then Curtis arranges for them to have, Chinese takeout. And then he's all like, there's wine here. And then, well, Chinese food plus wine plus a salmon letter equals post-breakup bunker sex. And
trademark patent pending.
No, they actually say it on the show. They actually call it bunker sex on the show.
Yes. And for this is actually not unusual to have we broke up, but then having the goodbye sex. This is a phenomenon. Maybe some of us have experienced it. Maybe we haven't. But, the next morning, she's just like, I'm still having trust issues. It's not about love. It's about trust. And this was all nice and everything. But you know what? We're still broken up. So bye.
That was
that's
hard.
The flashback.
That was hard. And you know what?
That was harsh. But
I think it was necessary for this whole thing. I'm just going to go here right off the bat. I think this was necessary. It was necessary to bring Olicity to an end in a definite fashion, but it was also necessary to talk about the underlying issue which broke them apart to begin with, which was trust. And we've never had that conversation before. They admitted it on the show. And I think that's going to lead to being able to move ahead with non-Olicity.
Did it really end, or did it open the door again? Because my read was it opened the door again. So now you can get back out to the what's the best term I'm coming here trying to get here? No, I don't want to say the overly aggressive shipper base, maybe. And I don't mean that to sound terrible. I realize it does. But there's a lot of people that strong hardcore ship Olicity who were very upset with the fact that they broke up Oliver and Felicity, especially because the reason of you lied to me about your son trying to protect your son. I mean, I'm one of those that came out and said that reason seemed a little shaky to me. So now it seems like they almost opened the door back up to me because she's like, I understand why you did that. And you go back to the flashback and she basically says, I can't be with you because I don't trust you. You have to be fully honest with me. And now she sees it from his side.
I agree. Chris, I am 100% with you. I actually, I'm not a big fan of Olicity. I actually thought this episode was needed to fill in those gaps that you mentioned. But the thing is, I hate how they left this because I agree. I think it's coming back. The problem that they had, that the flashbacks were addressing, was we finally reached that compromise. They found that mutual understanding. He saw her point of view, she saw his, and now they have that out of there. They have that behind them. And I don't see, like, why would they not pursue that relationship further if their one problem that they had that broke them up is now actually gone. I think that it's coming back, and maybe even intentional so that they can have the Olicity fans happy next year. So I agree with you.
I don't know that they're going to bring back the relationship. I think they're going to try and bring back that will they, won't they dynamic that they had early on. The same thing people loved about Moonlighting. It was better before they hooked up the two leads. I think they're going to play with that for a little bit. The whole, they solve the issue they have between them. We know they're still attracted to each other because we made a point of showing them backslide in their flashback and hook up once more. So we know the attraction is still there. We know they care about each other. They've resolved their issues. Now it's will they, won't they? Is Oliver finally going to wise up? Is Felicity going to wise up? I don't see them jumping back into the saddle immediately.
All right.
I actually have to disagree for another reason that
he's violating the spirit of the podcast. Kick him off.
No, it's a really weird reason, but it was a scene that actually stood out to me as odd until this episode. When he went to visit Felicity last time, he looked around that apartment really oddly, and it was a really weird scene. And it was like he was almost coming home. And now that we've got this here, I don't know. I won't be surprised if all of a sudden he's living with her again.
To be fair,
I don't know.
It was his home.
Well, it was also Thea's home, and it was also Malcolm Merlin's home.
That's true.
So there you go.
So one of the things I think that she finally realized is that and also this mirrors what Diggle and Lila went through this episode, is that trust doesn't actually mean telling everybody your secrets. Trust is, I know who you are. Okay, you have a secret, but I have to trust the fact that you're keeping it for the right reason. And I have to trust the fact that you are still true to me, that you still love me, and that you are doing your own thing. And when you are ready, you will tell me. Because, Diggle and Lila made this great point about, like, we both do morally gray things. You are a vigilante. I run a secret spy agency. So sometimes we are just not up and up. And, Lila's like, you do what, you always have Oliver's back, and I trust you having his back, even if I don't agree, and that type of stuff. And, I think that's something that Felicity's had to learn, because she says at the end, I've gone through a fraction of what you've gone through, and look at how far I went. And, now she sort of understands more about what it means to have trust in this particular lifestyle. And it's like, finally, it's like, good. So I'm really happy that, Lila and Diggle are good and solid. I want them to go have sex and make baby Sarah. And I really want there to be Olicity. I think it's actually going to happen, considering the reaction on Twitter and everything like that. I think it's one of those things to where the show ends with him and Felicity moving to Seattle and opening up a florist shop called Sherwood Florist. And, it makes Neil kind of happy.
So you see it as a slow burn thing, the return of Olicity then?
Yeah, because considering that this show may have one more season, there's not enough time to get him and Dinah together. Him and Dinah do not have that chemistry. They haven't
had any scenes together alone, though.
Yeah, but you have to understand, when Stephen Amell and Emily Brett Rickards were first on screen together, they had this amazing chemistry. And I cannot believe the producers. See, normally when you cast a show, you do what's called chemistry test. And good producers know to do those. And sometimes actors lose jobs because they don't pass that chemistry test with others. So I'm surprised the producers just didn't see their chemistry and been like, maybe she should have been, Black Canary to begin with or something, because those two have amazing chemistry. And he had it with Huntress, kind of the woman who played Huntress. But to me, I think they've gotten themselves in a hole to where if he's going to end up with anyone, it's going to be her.
You heard it here first on the Starling Tribune. Michelle just called Greg Berlanti and Mark Guggenheim bad producers.
Oh, shots fired.
I did not. I'm just saying that they didn't really
Michelle,
read the.
I agree with you, and I gotta say, the only thing to their credit, since we're slogging them right now, is Felicity was intended as a one-time character. She was not meant to be the role that she was. So they had already had Katie Cassidy in there. So I don't know if you remember that, but Felicity was supposed to be a one-time.
Oh, that's right. And then they saw the chemistry she had with him. And okay, all right, but yeah. Okay. So I stand corrected. They brought her in late. And then they were like, oh, that's where it should go. And that's where they painted
But hey,
it.
Michelle, if you want to go to war with Greg Berlanti and Mark Guggenheim, I got your back.
Oh,
Wouldn't be the first war we started.
Yeah,
this
Steven
week.
needs that because he's going to war with other people right now.
No, it's just thank you, Stephen, for reminding me. But it's interesting that considering that they had so much chemistry, that they kept her. And I guess that's the point I'm making, is that they kept Felicity, they saw the chemistry, and then they decided to take that road. And it's something that they have to travel. They have to travel it now. It's too late.
I do agree, though. I think that they definitely should have gone that way, because you got to remember early in Arrow, we still had like all these questions of which way are they going to go? Are they going to follow comics? Or are they not going to follow comics? And people started to get upset because things they were doing with Laurel Lance was different than the comics. So they had set that early on. They easily could have been like, okay, well, Laurel Lance, she's just going to go do this thing, and Felicity Smoke is actually going to be the Canary. And they could have gone that way for sure. So I do agree. I think they could have still brought the Canary, the whole idea of Canary, into Felicity.
All right, guys, I got two final questions for you, and you guys can talk about anything else that's great on your minds. But the first question is that, how'd you like the ending? How'd you like them bringing William in? That was pretty harsh, I think, and I don't like it when they screw around with the kids personally, so I don't like that part of the episode. Chris?
His name is Matthew. William's gone. He doesn't exist anymore. It's Matthew. They found the wrong kid. What's he gonna do when he shows up and Oliver's like, that's not my kid. My kid's name is William. Please no one think I'm being serious there. I was trying to be overly facetious. You kind of expected it because they made a point of name dropping William a couple times in this episode. So unless you just were only half paying attention and playing around on the internet at the same time, you're like, oh, William's coming into play. That's obviously Prometheus's next play. And the real question now is, if they really want to shake up season 6, do they kill off his mother in the process? So then Oliver's like, what do I do with this kid? Oh no.
I sure hope they don't kill her off because I like her. She was on the show Defiance. We talked about this before. I actually want to see her back on screen.
They did a good job of not having to show her on screen right now. So I would have my doubts as to whether she's under contract to appear in the next episode or not.
Michelle, what'd you think of it?
It was, I saw it coming because when Prometheus had Oliver trapped in that torture episode, he does mention William and everything. So it's like, oh, so he's going to go kidnap the kid. My question is, they thought Prometheus set off the EMP. I thought the way it looked, Helix had done it. So do we think it was actually Prometheus? Do we think it was just Helix? Or do we think Chase got Helix to do it?
I think it was Helix getting one last jab in. I don't know that it was necessarily honest, the giving of that technology. It was, you're kind of a threat to us. Maybe we need to try and wipe out your technical prowess so from your headquarters so that you can't continue to be a thorn in our paw.
Yeah, I don't buy that it's that it's him. I think that it was Helix myself. That's what I think, because it was like it happened as she was using the Helix software. And yeah, I gotta say, I think it's them.
Look, if it was Prometheus, he made damn good time getting to another city right after he set off an EMP.
Well, and you remember, it happened as she was locating. Oh, he's here. What? Yeah, no, it was Helix. There's a reason behind Helix, and I won't be surprised, and maybe it's not this season, maybe it's next season. I think that it's going to be laying the bed for Felicity to really feel burned by Helix, because she was burned, but she still like believes in Helix, and now she's going to be like, oh wow, they actually bombed my lair. I almost died because of Helix, right? Like I think that that's where this is headed. As for William, yeah, I'm with Michelle. I think it was predictable. And I've been noticing this weird trend within TV series lately where kids are now fair game, which is really odd to me. And it's really hard for me to go into that. I don't understand. I don't get it. And it's just a thing where kids are now being brought in to TV.
Yeah, Steven and I have talked about this before this year with not Desperate Housewives, with Designated Survivor. Might as well be Desperate Housewives because that's on Supergirl right now. But yeah, I don't like that trend, and I have an issue with it. Okay, I have one final question for you guys. The flashbacks were 11 months ago. We have ended the flashbacks to the 5 years ago. We will in the season finale when we get back to Leon Yu. I don't think we're going to get the traditional 5 year ago flashback anymore. How'd you like how they tied in the 11-month time frame as a flashback mechanism as we go forward? They can choose different time frames normally in the off seasons, I would think, and they could bring back the flashbacks, which are an integral part of the show, but not go 5 years ago. How do you guys think it worked, and do you want to see it again? Chris?
I think we'll see it again because it's become part of the formula for the show, having flashbacks in it. We mean, think about it. We very rarely have an episode where they don't flashback in some capacity on there. Their gimmick is predicated on something happens in a flashback that then ties into what's going on in the current time frame. I mean, it'd be tough to phase that out. Now, I think there's still potential we could get stuff that's from 5 years ago, but they start taking an alternate slant on something that happened in season 1 of Arrow that then has an implication in our current time frame. I think that has potential there, and I think it could be kind of interesting, and it's a way for them to almost retcon some of the stuff they might no longer want to have in place from season 1, because the show has changed a lot since then.
Yeah, this podcast has changed a lot since then. So, Michelle, what do you think about the flashbacks?
I thought it was interesting. I like how they used it this time. I don't think they're going to do like 5 years ago and that type of stuff every single episode next season. The producers have talked about perhaps using flashbacks to fill in backstory of some of the other characters.
Previously on
nice.
Battlestar Galactica.
I think it would be nice for them to actually grow as a writing team and try to, like it's a new chapter for the show because like we said, like the 5 year saga thing's coming to an end. So let's do a soft reboot kind of, and let's, grow the formula and make it not so reliant on flashbacks.
Steven, what did you think about the flashback time frame?
I thought it worked, but I'm more partial to the idea of exploring other characters myself. I think that we're okay to let the Oliver flashbacks go, and I think that we learned this year that they can definitely work with other characters.
All right. Well, Steven, it's been great having you on. Do you have any last words about the episode before we transition into the news?
I gotta say, I actually was in your chat last week talking about the whole Diggle Lila thing, and I was for it because I felt like it was an area that needed to be explored a little bit, the relationship. But the way it kind of just got wrapped up in a little bow there kind of bugged me a bit. I felt like it was a bit of a disservice to the idea there. It was just like, okay, let's just move on to the next episode. The good thing, though, however, that I thought that was nice that came from this was the fact that we finally got some Dinah actual like integration to the team. She was standoffish with Diggle. Diggle rejected her advice. And then it was like, she's like, okay, if you want to talk, I'm here. And it was like, finally, we can see it's not just like, oh, look, she's part of the team. Yay. Happy-go-lucky. She's part of the team. We actually had her trying to work her way in and finding her place. And that's what I've been missing, is I felt like it was just too much assumed that she was part of the team. So I was really happy to see that element of it.
It was so cute when all three of them were like right there, like with Lila and Diggle's place, and you open the door and all three of them were there, and like, oh, we need your help.
I know they're in there.
Yeah,
I think
I
I heard
know.
them. Knock again.
It was. I thought that was really cute.
So, Michelle, any last thoughts?
If I invented a piece of technology and then somebody stole it, I would be pretty upset, even if they improved it. But Curtis was like, "Ooh, they're better. Okay, I guess I'll forgive you." Okay, Curtis, if you're fine with it, I guess I'll be too.
I
He
think
is
he
very
had higher priorities at the moment, and that was we need to save Oliver and Felicity, and you might see him be a little cranky about it in the future, potentially. At least I hope that's the case.
He is very forgiving, but even at the beginning of the episode, they were calling him out as not being able to fight very well. So, Chris, any last words?
I enjoyed it, despite the fact it was a bottle episode, and bottle episodes normally annoy me.
Well, maybe it's that recalled gin from Canada in a bottle.
I don't drink
For those that don't know, there is a certain bottle or a certain brand of gin that was mislabeled for its alcohol content. It's supposed to be 40%. It was 77%. So
Heyo, I better buy me some of that.
that's what I was talking.
Practically the same.
It's basically the same. I'm in West Virginia. I've drank harsher moonshine.
I'll bet, actually. So, Michelle, what do we got on tap for next week?
Well, next week's episode is called Honor Thy Fathers. It will air May 10th. It's the 21st episode of season 5. Oliver faces the forced release of criminals prosecuted by Adrian Chase, while a crate is delivered to Oliver's office containing a corpse in concrete.
Han Solo.
Rest in peace, Han.
Director Laura Besley and writers Mark Guggenheim and Sarah Tarkoff.
Oh, it's not going to be any good because it's Mark Guggenheim and he doesn't know how to produce.
I know he's not as good as Mike Guggenheim.
That's true. All right, it's time to move on to the news. Straight from the Starling Tribune news desk, Chris, you have something that Stephen Amell has teased.
Yeah, we had to bring this up. It's no secret that I have greatly enjoyed the character Prometheus, particularly just how twisted and evil he's been. I think I might have compared him to being almost on the level of Slade Wilson when it comes to my enjoyment. Well, Arrow star Stephen Amell, he spoke to comicbook.com reader Michael Leslie at the latest Planet Comic-Con in Kansas City, where he revealed that Chase's violent tendencies are only going to get worse for Team Arrow as it barrels towards its 5th season. He talked about how Prometheus has been a great villain for Green Arrow and his allies, calling Sagara almost scary good. When Leslie noted just how savage Chase has been revealed to be, Amell only offered this tease for the remaining episodes. Just you wait. Ooh,
I've heard that before.
I can't wait.
Yeah, you can't wait because of the whole Deathstroke thing, too.
I think we're going to get Deathstroke and Prometheus fighting, and I can't wait for it. I hope it happens.
That would be so cool.
Wouldn't it be?
Yes.
Wow.
So, Michelle, you actually have another news point about a younger version of an X-Men?
Well, no, see, that was the title of the article, is actually spoilers. And when you get down deeper,
I
the
see.
saddest news for Arrow is that John Barrowman, when he was at Planet Comic-Con, revealed to the audience that he's not going to be part of the Arrowverse next season. Now he's going to play a big part of the finale. I do not think they're going to kill Malcolm Merlyn. Malcolm Merlyn is too delicious to kill, but they might wrap, because he's supposed to have really, moments with Thea in the final episodes and stuff. So they might wrap that up, but it's, I'm a little sad because I love Malcolm Merlyn. I love John Barrowman.
Definitely. Steven, how do you think about that?
Meh. I think I've said it before. I think that they totally discredited Malcolm Merlin character as well as Damien Dark on Legends of Tomorrow. There was only a couple times that was pretty good, but I thought that it really took away from those characters this year. The only one that I actually thought worked really well was actually Thawne. I thought Thawne worked out, but I'm okay with it. I think Merlin's been played pretty good. When he ended up really teaming up with Damien Dark last year, I thought that was it, and it should have been done last year.
All right. So let's just continue this use of Stephen here. And I know this is Michelle's news point, but why don't you just introduce the news point for Michelle, Stephen?
Oh, you mean about the Arrow finale?
No, I mean about the Flash.
Oh, about the Flash. Sorry. Yeah, the Flash. Oh, there is information on the Killer Frost showdown that has been teased all year in the Flash, right, Michelle?
Actually, I'm just going to cut you off there. Hey, so Michelle has a great news point about Savitar's identity being revealed.
Okay, so we did we've talked about Flash before. And when Savitar, did his whole thing through Julian and he says, I'm the future Flash, we've had conversations about, was it, I am the future, Flash, or am I the future Flash? And then we were like, oh, could it be Barry? Maybe, blah, blah, blah. And then people afterwards were like, like the producers, the actors, like, you are going to be so surprised about who Savitar is. So surprised. And so a lot of us on the internet are thinking, well, it can't be Barry if we're going to be really surprised. So who's it going to really be? Is it going to be Ronnie? Is it going to be this? Is it going to be that? And it ended up being Barry. So executive producer Andrew Kreisberg told EW was, what's really cool for anyone who thought that there wasn't a plan or we didn't know or we were making this up as we go, this was always where we were heading. The idea that the darkest villain we could come up with was actually a very damaged version of our hero was interesting and fresh to us. Which, that's an interesting idea and stuff, but, I'm sort of tired of like when the internet sort of figures it out and then they try to like go, oh, it's more interesting than that. And then it was what we originally thought. It's like, okay, all right.
Hey, J.J. Abrams it. They J.J. Abrams it. That just sucks. I hate J.J. Abramsing it.
You don't like lens flare?
And I don't like what he did with Khan. That was just, it grates me even to this day. Really don't like that.
I just feel like it was against the spirit of the Flash. That's all.
That's fair. I agree.
No, but seriously, like, you're right, Michelle. That's what they said. You're going to be surprised. You're going to be surprised. I'm totally surprised that Barry told us in Legends of Tomorrow to be surprised about himself or to be cautious of himself. Thing to me. They set it up so many different ways. So annoying.
I actually didn't see it coming, first of all. But I'm nonplussed by what it was. So we'll just see how it goes on. And then, I was going to make a joke, but it's completely spoiler full. So I will wait until afterwards to make that joke. All right. So that's it for the news this week. But we have a lot of geek news available for you on the GonnaGeek.com network, which we are part of. Right, Chris?
That is right. The Starling Tribune is one of multiple shows that are a part of the Gonna Geek Network, which you can find over at GonnaGeekNetwork.com. We've got a variety of shows, no matter what your tastes are. If you like to hear about general geek news or Doctor Who or Arrow, things like that, we've got shows all about that. But each week, we try to highlight one specific show on the network to give you guys a little bit of taste and say, ooh, maybe I want to go check that out. And this week, I want to talk to you guys about a podcast I really enjoy, and I think I'm caught up on it finally. It's Game Life Balance US, which streams every... I didn't pull the right thing, but they post every other Thursday. You can find the new episode over on GonnaGeekNetwork.com. So a little bit of background. Game Life Balance is a lifestyle podcast hosted by Cody Goff and Jonathan Martin, two longtime friends who are trying to juggle their gaming hobbies with the increasing demands of life as adults. Join them each week to see how they're doing in their quest to become responsible grown-ups even when they find themselves gaming at conventions for several days at a time. So go check out Game Life Balance US and all of the other awesome shows on the network over at GonnaGeekNetwork.com. I mean, you can also check out
And
some
tell
of those
Cody that John sent you.
Yeah, and feel free to check out some of Big Papa's shows here since he's with us today.
And who may or may not own the GonnaGeek.com network.
Yeah, but I had to mention that because it'd be against the spirit of the GonnaGeek.com network if I didn't. Just letting you guys know. But a big thank you to everyone who did listen live and participate in the Geeks.live chat. And also a thank you to anyone who downloads and listens or watches any of the replays. Don't forget, you can download our podcast, find them on Spreaker, watch the replay on YouTube, or pull them from our RSS feed.
And if you've enjoyed this live show, feel free to tell other friends that they can join us live Thursdays, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern on Geeks.live. Yes, that is actually an internet address, www.geeks.live. Just want to say thanks to all the fans that were here, including Scott Smith. It was great to see you in the chat tonight.
You can watch the next live show on the Gonna Geek Network over on Geeks.live. The next live show on the network is Better Podcasting, Friday at 6:30 p.m. Eastern. And don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe. We appreciate all those 5-star reviews on iTunes. Like us on Facebook and YouTube, and badger us on Twitter.
You can find all of our contact information on the Gonna Geek Network at GonnaGeekNetwork.com. And you can also head over there and see some forums and other crazy geeky shows on there. If you want to share your thoughts, go to our Facebook page. That's the Starling Tribune. And you can send us a tweet or give us a call at 612-888-CAVE. That's 612-888-2283. And thank you to all three of you for having me on here today. It was a ton of fun.
Thank you for following the spirit of the show, Stephen.
I didn't.
I'm going to have to block you on Twitter now.
That's okay. I've been blocked before.
That's okay. Well, guys, it's been a great episode. I think that's going to wrap it up for this latest episode of the Starling Tribune. But do we have any last words before we sign off? Let's start with @Stargate Pioneer.
Hashtag bunker sex.
Ooh. @Michelle Ely.
Hashtag long, strong shaft.
Giggity. @Steven John Drew.
Hashtag methane.
I like it. And I am @the Chris Farrell signing off with hashtag spirit of the show. Oracle, I think we're done here.
This was the Starling Tribune. You can leave us feedback at GonnaGeek.com or check out our archive at StarlingTribune.com. Visit GonnaGeek.com for more podcasts. Music by Kevin MacLeod can be found at Incompetech.com. This podcast is not produced or maintained by the CW, Warner Brothers Television, CTV, or DC Comics. All characters, stories, and situations are the property of Time Warner. No infringement is intended. We will see you for the next episode of CW's Arrow.